This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. Boom. And here we are for this episode of Coming Home with John Allen, the podcast. Coming Home with John Allen, the radio show. It's a double shot here. And before I speak on our topic today, and before I introduce you to a couple of fine ladies, I want to tell you people that you can look in the description of this episode if you're listening to it on a podcast platform, or if you're watching on YouTube. There will be a few links where you can click in if you would like to support my work. Help a brother out, and I'll
buy
keep
him a
doing this.
coffee.
Buy me a coffee.
Somebody buy you coffee.
Everybody thinks Patreon, but I love that buy me a coffee. It's cute.
It's
just
cute.
You
You
know,
need
buy
a
me
coffee.
And you hear
How
that
much
wonderful
coffee do you
voice.
get?
You hear that wonderful voice in the background. So Tiffy is here today. Tiffy is she's not my guest. She's my guest host. Tiffy is going to run the show today. And we have on the screen here in front of us, Miss Michelle Higgins coming at us from Florida.
Hello.
That's my girl.
Tiffy, take it away. This is your
I will
thing.
take it away. Today I wanted to discuss, the reason why I wanted to bring Michelle on the show is because...
Because she's hot?
Well, yes.
Somebody said that. Somebody said that.
Plenty of people have said that. So Michelle is super hot, but not only that, but
So good for my self-esteem. I'm just,
Michelle is also wicked smart. I mean, she's super smart, and especially in the course of psychology. When I talk to her, she always makes me feel better. She has, it's not like, she has personal experience, but then she also has the knowledge from school.
She has that professional warmth.
She has the professional situation going on there.
And I had a great time talking with you a few weeks back on that podcast episode. Anybody that Tiffy refers to me or refers me to is good in my book. And then you just kind of drove it home with the good conversation that we had. So I thank you again for that. And I think this is going to be even better because now we have Tiffy.
Yay, Tiffy. We miss Tiffy. And not only that, but I don't know if anybody's noticed, but my voice is almost back. I can almost hear myself talking.
But as a fan, I'm not just your friend and brother. I'm a fan.
Yeah, it was really
as a fan, she has never had a bad voice. When she thought her voice
that
was
raspy
bad,
thing was kind of cool.
it was this 1985 Kim Carnes, Betty Davis eyes type of thing going on.
Right?
Right, yeah. And who doesn't like that?
Kim Carnes or whatever.
Did I say Kim Kardashian? Kim Carnes.
Kim Carnes.
Kim Carnes. She was like that. She was like an 80s kind of raspy voice there.
Yeah.
Some of us are that.
I have that thing. I sounded like I was smoking a cigarette through my trach. Yeah. Okay.
But it's good to have you both here. It's really good for me. I get to relax a little bit, lean back, and let Tiffy take the reins, as she is so good at doing. So there you go. Right, if you want to ride do you remember that song?
I do. Well, anyway, the reason why I asked you to ask Michelle here is because Michelle posted on her Facebook page. It was not a meme. It was a graphic. There's a difference. Memes are like set up to, they're graphics to mock things or be funny. But she put up a graphic that really should have been in a textbook somewhere. And this graphic was talking about the narcissistic family dynamic. And when she posted that, it was like a gut punch to me because I recognized my family in it right away.
I think a lot of us did.
Yeah. So basically what the graphic showed was one parent was the narcissist, but the other parent was the enabler. Mm-hmm. And then you have three kids, which I grew up with, two brothers. So I'm a part of three kids. And you had one kid that was the golden child, one kid that was the scapegoat, and one kid that was the invisible child. And I had to look this up because I felt that in my core. I knew growing up myself that my older brother was the golden child. My parents bought him a car but didn't buy me a car. There was always you can grow up in the same family but have completely different experiences. So I was wanting to ask you, Michelle.
I'm laughing because I feel like I have to reevaluate my parenting already now.
Yeah.
Am I treating my kids equally?
I don't think you have any signs of being a narcissist.
No, he doesn't have the signs. No.
Way too much empathy, way too much heart. It's not even.
No,
it's not even possible.
But you can
evaluate your parenting how you want, but it's not. You're not a narcissist.
Yeah. Good to hear.
You're very good. But you call yourself whatever you want, beat yourself up, self-critique, whatever. But you're not a narcissist.
But there are people that say, how can you have these children that grow up so differently? Like you have one child that grows up to be an adult, goes up to be like a politician, and the other child grows up to be a drug addict and has issues. And you're like, hey, you grew up in the same house, but just because you grew up in the same house with the same parents doesn't mean you grew up with the same experiences.
Interesting observation, and actually, that's there's really nothing to contest there. That's so true when you think about it. But the thing is I don't think most people don't think about that. No. They just kind of live their lives, and they have inner resentment within the family, but they don't really analyze it.
They don't analyze it, and they don't realize that people can have completely different experiences in life. And when Michelle posted that graphic, I immediately recognized my own family, because when they say that, I grew up with a narcissistic father. I knew that, and I've known that since I was young. I knew. I didn't.
How
know
did
that,
it manifest itself? His narcissism.
He was what they call a covert narcissist, which is they're not like Trump. I'm sorry to throw that out there.
He's a malignant.
He's a malignant narcissist. He's an overt narcissist.
Okay.
You can totally tell. He's like
he's in your. He's textbook. Like he's just
Right.
So I'm going to assume then that
I'm amazing. Coverts, like nobody else has ever seen. I'm going to do all these.
Coverts are sneakier. The covert ones are a little sneakier. Oh, Trump is obvious. If you after, you should be able to see it after a while.
Yeah. But Michelle, can you explain what a covert narcissist is?
They're more compared to the malignant kind like Trump. There can be more charming. They can be more. You wouldn't catch it right away. Everyone's going to be like, oh, they're a great guy. They're so nice. So everybody around you could almost invalidate what you're going through because everyone else likes them. They're so sweet. They're so nice. They're so helpful. They're so kind. But they're really not. But that's the mask, the image that they put out there. Yeah.
Right. So but then behind the mask, they still want to pull those strings. And with the covert narcissists, their thing is that they still are so great. They still are so fantastic, but the world didn't recognize them. Like my dad used to lose jobs over and over and over again, and the reason why he lost these jobs is that, he would make some excuse like, I took somebody else's table when he was a waiter. I took somebody, I was just really gung-ho with my job, and so I took somebody else's table, and, I was making sure that they got the service that they deserved, and, and then they fired me, but really the reality was he was taking people's tips, or some shit like that. Yeah. So they still want to portray this grandiose situation, but the world doesn't, oh, poor me, the world doesn't see how great I am, and oh, what a pity it is. So it's harder to see that kind of narcissism. And that was my dad. That was my dad to the T, still is to the T, kind of thing.
That kind of a narcissist, are they the type that they're kind of, in a way, to mask their arrogance, they will actually try to appear as someone who is rather... maybe they've hurt, I lost my job.
Yeah. Deep down, that is the issue. Yeah.
Well, that's deep down the issue with all narcissists. The issue is that they have small egos. They have,
they don't feel worthy. They don't feel worthy anything.
So the only way they can feel worthy is to puff them up like,
they need
peacocks.
people building them up.
Right.
Ego builders, little tell me I'm great all the time. Little fans.
Yeah. They need that
wonderful.
Stuff.
And the second you don't do that, then I don't. Yeah, they can't get it themselves.
Right. And that was the way with my dad. And so what you posted with that picture.
I have it still. Yeah.
Yeah, that graphic. I mean, hopefully we can be able to put it up or something.
Yeah, send me that.
I have it. I can share it later.
Episode.
Yeah, I have it. I found
with
it.
this graphic, when he posted it, it was like a kick in the stomach because I felt like you were pointing right at me with a sense of, like I said, like my brother
describes everything.
Yeah, the way
you felt that.
I felt it hard because I knew for a fact that my older brother was the golden child because, like I said, my parents bought him a car. He could do no wrong.
Do you want me to read the qualities of each of them?
Oh, please. Yeah, do that.
Okay. So like the golden child is where the narcissist projects all of their qualities. Like they're like the mini narcissist, right?
Right.
So like they're the favorite. They can do no wrong. Elder special treatment, like you said, buying your brother a car, like he's like up here. There's like a hierarchy and you're not it. The golden child is.
No.
So
Yeah.
The scapegoat is the one that tends to, the story, the Emperor's New Clothes. They're the ones that tend to be like, hey, the Emperor's naked and calls it out. And then they get in trouble.
That's what I noticed. Let me stop you right there, because what I realized is that I didn't know when these roles became.
It's because you speak out.
Right. And that's what it was, is that I was the one that noticed some shit was going on. I called it out.
And you put words on it?
I put words on it. I'm like,
you didn't play
this
like,
is
like
not
the
fair.
Child will go with it. They want the attention, and so they'll play the role. And you're like, hey, I called bullshit.
I called bullshit. And I remember that before my father actually cut me off from the family, because he ended up going no contact with me.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 36 when he went no contact with me.
Wow,
but I was 4. I remember when I was 4, and I remember that I told my dad, he was splitting cookies between me and my brother.
Yeah.
And he always gave my brother the bigger piece, or he was splitting something and my brother always got the bigger piece. And I remember I was so little, I was 4, and I said, no, we need to have same much. Is what I said, same amount, but I said same much. Yeah. Well, and I noticed that I was not getting the same much. I was not getting the same amount. And my parents, up until I was 36, my dad still joked about same much. He still mocked me for going after it and going, listen, I understand that we are not getting the same treatment right here. We are not getting the same treatment. What the fuck is going on? But that happened when I was 4, and I knew since I was 4. I was the scapegoat child. I mean, I didn't have the word for it, but I understood that I was not treated the same as my brother. So that was really fucked up.
Unfairness is universal, and kids pick up on that sometimes quicker than we adults do.
Yeah.
So you knew from a young age what was going on.
Yeah.
And you weren't playing along with it because you got, you're like, I'm calling it out.
Yeah, I called it out.
So I'm familiar with narcissists.
There's also a third child. There's like the lost child who tends to get nothing, like ignored.
And that was my little brother.
They're just kind of, they can go do whatever they want.
So, and then I called that out too whenever you posted that, because I knew.
Doesn't mean they're treated well. They're not nurtured at all. They're just kind of ignored. They just
but he also wasn't beaten. With my dad, my dad was a violent man, and he would beat the crap out of my older brother and me too. He would just beat the crap out of us with the belt, and this was the 80s, and it was acceptable. Yep. But my little brother never got hit. Yeah. Never got hit, but he also never got praised. He was the invisible child.
And
it's just kind of, we don't have time for you. We're too busy on the,
we're too busy with these two. Yeah, we're too busy with these two. And so my little brother, but I found out with the invisible child, my little brother or whatever, any invisible child, they will either go to one extreme or the other to get some kind of attention because they are invisible. Like you said, they need to be nurtured. They need to be cultured.
Want some kind of attention.
Right. And luckily.
Right, or the clown. Sometimes they'll be the clown.
Yeah. My little brother growing up, he was the clown. My little brother was the clown. He was always doing Beavis and Butthead impressions and, being silly or whatever. But now he's grown up and he's a lawyer. You know what I mean? So he went that way to look at me. I'm doing good.
He still wants to be looked at, but he's a lawyer.
But now you're going to respect him at this point, I think he also has his own knowledge that, it's no use in fighting for the attention. It's no use in that because. You know what I mean? Yeah. At some point when you're grown up, you're just like, okay, it's time to cut it off. It's time to stop fighting. But the one thing I really wanted to talk to you about is the sibling relationship, not just the golden child, and the invisible child and the scapegoat, but how all of us interact now as grownups.
Yeah, because that kind of a childhood
the Trump family is really, really good. The Trump family is a really good image of it because they are so textbook. Like Ivanka is the golden child.
Yes.
You see how she's like, and everybody sees it. It's not nothing about the Trumps is hidden. So there's such a good example of this.
Yeah.
So she's the mini Trump, right?
Yeah.
She's always like right there, and
she can't do any wrong. She can't do any wrong. She's sitting on Daddy's lap all the time.
She's like right there, and she has no empathy either. She's pretty much like, I feel bad for her kids. Mm-hmm. Her and Jared are parents. I mean, come on.
She does come across as pretty cold.
So then what? Eric is
cold and just image, and she's got to be like looking perfect all the time, and everything's about my father this, my father that. Like she's just very aligned with him.
right.
And then you have and then Eric is kind of like the lost child, the invisible one.
I don't know. I think
Because he's kind of like-
Tiffany is the lost child, if you ask me.
Tiffy, I forget about her. She's definitely out
See,
there.
you even
I
forgot about her. That's how
I-
invisible she is. You forgot about
But
her.
I'm saying just
To me,
on the Ivanka's kids, you know?
Yeah.
Let's go with Ivanka. She doesn't
in
have
my
the same
head,
mom.
I think that
She's
Eric,
not- I think they
Eric
both
is
are.
the
I think they both
scapegoat.
are.
Eric is the
I
scapegoat.
actually thought Don Jr. only because even though he's horrible at it, he's actually not the best example.
Right.
But he's the one that does everything gets blamed on him.
Let me ask you.
Everything gets blamed on Eric. Everything gets blamed on John Jr. He can do no right. He gets made fun of. He pisses his father off all the time. He just copes by doing stupid stuff like lots of cocaine or whatever he's doing. I don't know.
as
Let me
you
just
do.
jump in here. Let me jump in here real quick to do.
Okay.
The magic of editing on radio.
Yeah.
It'll fit. It will fit.
We'll
Okay?
make it fit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's kind of like so the scapegoat is whoever gets everything blamed on them.
Yeah,
Kind of like,
me,
you're
I was the one that
can
was
do no
picked
right.
on. Yeah, I couldn't do anything
Yeah.
right. I couldn't do anything. I remember when I was a kid, I got a C on my math, on my report card in math, a C.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I was grounded for 6 months.
6 months for a
6
C.
months for a C on my math report card. But my older brother, the golden child, he went to take a shower one time.
Yeah.
And he left his pants on the floor in the bathroom, and my parents pulled out a bag of weed. Did he get grounded? No. My parents were like, you're experimenting, you're 17, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm 16. I got a C in fucking trigonometry, which is hard. I'm like, what? I'm like, Dad didn't even graduate high school, but I got to get 6 months grounded, and that's how it was.
6 months.
Trigonometry.
6 months. 6 months. That's extreme.
Whole months, and it was always extreme with me. The punishments were always extreme. So, but what I want to talk about really mainly is, fuck the parents, because we know they're fucked up, right? We know. I know my dad. I know my dad was a narcissist, and I'm just now starting to understand that my mom was the enabler. Because what we know about narcissistic families is that it only takes one good parent to help the children, like one that really protects. You can have the sweetest mom in the world. She can be lovely and darling, but if she lets your narcissistic father go have a really go at you, you're still fucked up, right? And my mom let him go have a go at me. So that's neither here nor there. But what I'm really sad about is my relationship with my siblings, my brothers.
Yeah.
And triangulation. What do you know about triangulation?
Yeah.
Can you give us a little idea of what that is?
So it's kind of like when I'll try. Just so hard to explain right now.
Yeah.
So triangulation. 'Cause I know it like in the counseling aspect, but in the family
All right. Well, let me throw an idea at you of what it was in my life. I like growing up when I was little, and I had my older brother. We were kind of close up to a point. And then my dad started pitting the brother against me. He would take, like, if I go to my dad and tell my dad a secret, like, I don't like the way my brother looks in those shorts or whatever it is. Yeah, it's kind of like that show Survivor. You got an alliance, and then you go behind the other person's back. Yeah,
like you're on my team, and we're gonna go against that person.
Right, but just for a moment, and then you team up with somebody else, and then you go up against that other person, and it's just so much backstabbing and stuff, and you don't know who to trust anymore. And I find that sad because I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. My younger brother, I haven't even spoken to in 5 years because
I don't talk to him. Yeah, I know.
Right. Because of all the backstabbing and like my father used to include the other sibling in the punishment. For example,
That's interesting.
That's interesting. So I remember clearly.
That's.
Well, what it is it's scary. What it is,
you're talking higher level narcissistic
oh, okay.
stuff going on.
But I remember like
that's okay. No, it's just intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was intense. So I remember one time that I was not feeling well. I was kind of sick, and I was a little bit dehydrated, and I wanted to get out of bed. I don't want to say in the middle of the night, but like 10 o'clock at night, past my bedtime, and I wanted to go get a glass of water. And my dad was super pissed that I got up to get a glass of water. That he made me go into bed. He woke up my two brothers, gave my two brothers glasses of water to come into the bedroom and go, this water is so good. This water is so good.
You poor child.
Yeah.
Just poor child wanting water.
You're right. All I wanted was water. And he made my two brothers drink water in front of me while I couldn't have any water. And then sent, like that was some kind of...
He's already pitting them against you, too.
Right. So that he pits us against each other, and it was kind of fucked up. So that's kind of what triangulation is that he was trying to make me not trust my brothers and make my brothers not trust me, because I don't know what they're going to tell dad in order for them not to get punished. If they give dad the goods, then maybe they might... go free for the punishment for that day or whatever. And so you can't trust anybody. And I don't have any relationship with my siblings to this day. And I find that really, really sad, because like what people say is family is everything, but that the fuck it isn't.
It sounds like he was setting you guys, willfully or not, he was setting you guys up to be combatants instead of siblings.
He wanted us to fight for his approval. That's what narcissistic is it called narcissistic supply,
and all that fighting is going to damage your normal sibling relationship. It also makes him feel
more important, because look at all these people fighting over me.
Well, sure, and then thinking about
my attention.
Yeah, and then thinking about the effects on the children. Of course, all that fighting, no matter what the reason is, it's going to lead to a warped relationship. Which, you're
it's
adults and you're not speaking
up,
now,
right?
So.
And that's what they call the narcissistic supply, right, Michelle?
Yeah.
And can you explain narcissistic supply to the listeners?
So it's kind of like they need that validation, that gratification from other people's attention. So if you're there telling them wonderful things and they're so great, or just at least they're like seeking their attention or trying to get their approval, that pumps up their attention. If you are no longer doing that, if you're calling them out for doing wrong, if you're criticizing them in any way, or if you're ignoring them, then you're no longer giving them what they want.
Right. So basically what they want is praise or attention.
And they can discard you because you're not, it's like a discarding thing. If you don't give them what they want, then you're useless. They're going to go on and find someone else to do it. You're disposable. Just put somebody else in your place. So
path of
child
destruction.
isn't doing it,
they just leave a path of destruction. If you're of no use to them, then you're just cast aside.
That's basically it. Yeah. If you're not either praising them, telling them how smart they are, telling them how great they are, what a great person they are, if you criticize them in any way, shape, or form, then they either discard you, or what I found, and I had to do some research on it, they send what's called the flying monkeys.
Oh yeah, those ones. You
used that term before. I think you told me what it is, but what is that?
Well, do you remember from the Wizard of Oz?
Wizard of Oz, yeah.
And you know how like the Wicked Witch, she was like the controller, right?
Yeah.
And then what she did was she sent these flying monkeys, which is what they were. Yeah. She sent these flying monkeys out to torment Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Lion, even though these monkeys never met Dorothy or Tin Man or whatever. It's just they were doing her evil bidding.
Think of it like social media. So like if somebody, it's kind of like I'm gonna or the media. So if you want to make somebody, you can get like all the tentacles of like everyone else judging you too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm only judging you, but I'm gonna throw it out there and I'm going to say how bad of a person you are, and then the whole world's going to attack you or whatever.
I see that every day on social media.
And those are flying monkeys.
I use that example because, wasn't Trump even that? It was to use him again. Wasn't he good at that? Like, I'm going to insult you, but I'm also going to enlist all these other people and call
He got Rudy Giuliani to go out
people
there.
Doing it for him. Yes.
Yes.
You get other people to be against you as well.
Yes.
So now you have no allies.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to say how great he is. It's really, really, really toxic.
And not only that, but they'll also come and investigate you and try to find, bad things about
them.
you.
See how everyone thinks it's you. It's not me.
Yeah. So then you feel like you have a whole army coming against you, and then you can't fight back. And that's the whole premise of it. Flying monkeys. That's what they're called. Flying monkeys.
Flying monkeys.
Yeah. So
that can really be maddening, especially if you're somebody that's like a scapegoat. You never had your feelings validated. now I'm losing my voice. It's contagious, Tiffany.
That's all right.
It's contagious over the airwaves. But if you never had your feelings validated, then you are going to, and then other people are constantly saying you're wrong. This person, the narcissist, is wonderful. They're great. It's all you. It's just, it can lead you into a spiral.
Yeah. It's crazy making too. It's absolute crazy making. And the gaslighting.
The traits of a scapegoated child can be emotionally reactive, highly sensitive, empathic. Like, so they get reactive because they were never validated. You know what I mean? So they kind of react like,
how common is this? How common is this in society?
That's good. It's actually, I've been noticing, it's actually getting more common. It's actually, I think our societies in general are like encouraging narcissistic traits.
I don't think it's always
encouraging it too, I think.
Yeah. But I don't think these toxic family dynamics that are based in narcissism, I don't think it's easy to see. It's not easy to discover. It can be hidden. If you have that, if you have that charming
ones, the really good ones can be hidden.
Yeah, you have that charming covert narcissist who everyone thinks is a good father, a good husband.
Everyone's like, he's a great man. And he's creating,
he's creating a hell inside the four walls of the home.
And especially whenever the children they grow up in it, so they know their role also is to shut the fuck up.
Oh, you can play it. Yeah, the kids can play it all, and that can, you can act like everything's fine. And compartmentalize. This is what we show the world. This is what's really going on.
Because I remember whenever I was a little girl, and then my dad took us to church because that was his covert narcissism, is to get his fill up on some Lord, and so he would take us to church, and so he was like for a little bit he was the Sunday school teacher, and I had to be, nod, and my dad.
No, he was not.
Yes, he fucking was for a little bit.
Narcissism in the church,
So you had to be there on Sundays and say amen and
amen, and my dad would preach these passages that he didn't follow.
So because you had to fall into this mold of the perfect family to build up his ego.
Tiff, not only was everyone else against you, he's trying to get like God against you too.
He used religion against me too.
Like spirituality
because honor thy father and thy mother was like a big thing, you know what I mean? And I'm like, but what if I know my father's the devil? What if I know?
But I mean, he was trying to even say like even God agrees with me. That's like that talk about never trusting yourself, and you still did. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Scapegoat, but I pretty strong though, because they're not going to call out the crap. I didn't take some bravery.
I did call him out in the sense of like like I joked about that, or not joked, but I said the same much. Like I realized that there was a huge difference. I would keep saying that, but the more I said it, the more I was put down for anything. Like I did, even whenever I said I was 36, whenever I went no contact with my dad.
And that surprised me. I figured it was a long time ago.
No, because I still didn't realize it, because when you're brainwashed into it, I just thought my dad was different. Or my dad, I always knew my dad was different, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to call it the monster. It is narcissism. Right. That's what it is. I didn't know what it is. I just knew my dad was different and he was difficult.
So how did that go down then when was it like a declaration of, okay, I'm not speaking to you anymore? Or was
he did it to me,
but was it a declaration, or was it something that just kind of built up and then you just kind of faded out of each other's lives?
You actually commented on the whole situation. I don't know if you remember. It was a few years ago that my dad's, we were talking about on Facebook. It was a Facebook discussion, a thread, and it was talking about how do you remember kind of ish?
I think so.
We were talking about how we need to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Yes.
And then my dad started talking about, well, I raised 3 kids on $4.25 an hour. I was like, the fuck you did? Okay, granted, we survived.
I remember your dad on Facebook. You called him out all the time.
I called him out all the time.
How do these people still talk? Because you were just like...
because I was stunned with it.
How the heck they were still talking as a family, because you were like, I'm going to post all the effed up stuff that ever happened.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just share it. We're going to get into it. And they just kept talking. I'm like, how is he... and you were just opposed on so many values and everything. I was
Yeah,
like,
because my dad would say he wasn't a Trumper, but he was full on Republican. He was a Marco Rubio guy back in those
so
days.
Your politics would go at it with him.
Yeah. So the politics, we went at it. But my dad started talking about, I raised my kids just fine on $4.25 an hour.
You called him out about it. Yeah, we survived.
I wasn't even allowed water.
Well, we were eating out of trash cans, and
I didn't have water.
Yeah. So no, you didn't, like, because in today's society, if you try to raise a kid on $4.25 an hour, and the way that I was raised,
the
like,
cost of living's gone up too, and it's just
that
different.
too.
But still, back then,
Even back
$4.25 an
then,
hour.
if you checked out my living situation back then in today's standards of CPS, they would have taken me out of the home.
That was neglect, and
it was neglect. I mean, like our car had a big hole in the bottom of it, and we didn't have seatbelts. You know what I mean? Like, they would have taken us out of the home.
Yeah.
So that discussion on Facebook, was that the
That was
final
it.
straw?
That was it. Whenever
I
I
remember
told,
it got pretty hot and heavy, and he was pissed, and
he was
stood
pissed,
fast,
and then he blocked me, and so and then my mom sent me a message, and she's like, your father is really, really sad. I'm like, he is he? If he was sad, then he would have communicated with me.
I was so guilty for it.
Yeah. So what basically he sent my mom as a flying monkey.
Yeah.
To try to pull me back in, and he still kind of uses her out as a flying monkey. My mom's like, well, you should wish your father a happy birthday, and I'm like, well, he didn't wish me.
What does that do to you, though?
Now nothing.
You're fine.
Now nothing, because I know what it is. I can call the monster out. When you can call the monster by its name,
it's a process.
It's no longer as dangerous.
But it was a process because, like I said, it happened when I was 36, and it took a few years, and then now it still is a process because, like I said, with that it wasn't a meme, graphic that you put up.
Yeah.
About, I will
share it too.
I knew who my father was. He was the narcissist. And I knew who my big brother was, I was, and my little brother was. But you put up that one that said enabler. And that was the one, that's the one I'm still working on now, because my mom was so sweet. Like when my dad used to abuse us, hit us with a belt or whatever.
You feel a lot of empathy for the enabler too.
Right. It's really, really hard.
It's your mom. I mean,
it's my mom, and she was the one that, if she could, she stopped the abuse.
And she's kind of trapped in this all too. It's not like she overtly did anything. She's conned by him as well. So,
right. But the whole thing is that she knows better now at this point, and then she still chose to stay with him. So then I'm kind of they're really complicated feelings to that. But anybody who's been in a narcissistic family dynamic, I think some of them, they will understand that, you are not close to anybody in your family. You don't trust anybody in your family. You're afraid they're going to talk behind your back. They're going to.
There's like a distance there. Yep.
There is a complete distance. And so whenever, now I have this amazing boyfriend, Andrew. I think you met Andrew.
I got to meet him.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't met him.
Andrew brought me the car, or brought me my luggage in the car.
Andrew.
He drove up.
Michelle came all the way to my house in Portugal. And
you've been here in Norway. I forgot about that.
I went to Bergen.
She came to visit me, and then she forgot like a piece of her luggage at my house, which is
no, I didn't forget. No. I had it all planned to come back. Bergen, the train. They came and left. The train.
That's what it was.
There was no return train, and then you call this number, but nobody answers it. And so there was no train. So I had to figure out how to get back from Bergen. And then the next day, I had like a flight out of Oslo to go to London, and I was going to meet up. So anyway, I'm like, I found my way, and nobody spoke English in this little area, which I think people speak English everywhere. But I figured it out. I found the little what do you call it? Not a trolley. A bus.
Yeah, bus.
It's a bus. I found the bus to the airport.
BUS bus.
I figured out the word lift on the thing. And then I got to the airport somehow. I don't know how, but I did. But then I was like, well, if I can fly to Oslo, but then I don't know how to get my luggage in time because it's still at Tiffany's house, because I was planning on going back there. So anyway, Andrew is a wonderful man, and he drove all the way up. He had to do yoga in the hotel floor because his back was all messed up from driving.
Because it took
I'm like,
3
go
hours
ahead,
to get
you
there.
go away, you do all the stretches.
I just got a question.
3 hours to get my bag.
I have a question that just fell into my head now. Talking about Andrew and how much he means to you. And I have my Snoopy, and you know how much she means to me.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Do we as adults gravitate towards a certain kind of significant other to compensate? If we've had that,
I think sometimes you might like repeat. I think sometimes people initially have to go through some bad relationships to learn.
That's what I did, John.
What not? Because you might repeat like I dated a lot of narcissists.
Me too.
For a while there.
Like what they always say is that little girls date their fathers.
A mile away now.
Yeah. Little girls date their fathers. I'm not going to get into my stuff too much, but yeah, I did date a lot of narcissists. Yeah, and I just remember. Now I can spot them a mile away. It's not hard, but I think now I would be like you guys. I would gravitate towards somebody that's more. I know what I gravitate towards. Right.
I just haven't found it. But you two, I think you go towards
what
empathic, whatever. People that are kind, that are loving, that are nurturing.
I think immediately after, like in your teenage years, your early 20s, when you're first starting to date somebody.
Yeah.
They always say that little girls date their fathers. So you always
gross.
I know it's gross. It's totally gross. But what you little boys date their mothers too.
Yeah, and that's true.
Familiarity.
And that's true.
That's
very true.
Yeah.
Because it's what you know what love is, and so what you recognize what love is. So if I recognize,
or you still want that person's attention and validation, so you kind of you might go to that same type to hoping that they'll get it.
Yeah, and then that's what I did. I kept trying to date those narcissists and kept trying to change them too, because I was trying to fix my past and going, okay, well, I was too young to fix my dad.
They can validate me, then they're wrong, because this other person's telling me I'm wonderful.
No, it never happened.
What do professionals, people, psychologists, psychiatrists, people who work in healthcare, people who work with children, maybe people, especially those people who work with children, what do they need to look out for? Because again, I don't think that it's always very clear and evident. The presence of this interfamilial narcissism is not always easy to see. What should people look out for?
For in the parent, like, what do you mean? Like, who's?
Yeah, I'm thinking, as a person who works in childcare,
I think it's just kind of. I think you work in this so long enough. It's kind of like when you date somebody or have it. Like, it's just so obvious to people that if you're in the field, I think eventually you just spot it, because they'll be like extra nice. They'll compliment you too much, especially like in my role. Like, let's say. And I don't do divorcing parents anymore, but if there's a divorce and one of them's a narcissist, they want to get me as a flying monkey.
Right.
So my role as a counselor, I'm kind of like, they're not really attack. They'll try to attack me, but I don't get them. There's nothing to attack me on. I have nothing bad in my history. I mean, you can professionally, I'm squeaky clean. There's nothing going on there. Yeah. So, they try to do that, but at first they'll try to like align with me too much.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're the best thing. You're in the complimenting and the trying to build me up.
The love bombing.
Like, I don't need your validation. I got it. But they try that. So that's thing. Manipulation. And the kids, I don't know. It's kind of hard. You'll see it. It's kind of hard to explain for me right now. But you'll see it.
I just think of all the kids.
Charming, manipulative. Like, you feel like you're being manipulated. Like they want something from you.
I just think of all the kids who are in families like that. And, I can remember some of the things I experienced as a kid, and looking back on it now as an adult, I'm like, what's wrong with all of the adults, the teachers, the school counselors and whatnot? Why didn't they see anything, and why didn't they do something?
Because they got conned. Yeah. A lot of times they won't.
And for in my case, it was the 80s.
I see where you're going with the question.
In my case, it was the 80s, and nobody wanted to step in. I do remember specifically as a child going to a restaurant with my father, and it was me and my two brothers and him, and it was a restaurant that my mother worked at. So she was a waitress there, and we were waiting for her to get off of work. So we were going to eat there, and we were going to get our free meal or whatever.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there, but we had a different waitress waiting on us. And I remember that I was holding back tears. I don't remember what it was my father did, but it was like a threat of some sort. Oh, wow. And I was holding back tears and trying not to cry because I was the tough one. I didn't. If I cried, then all hell broke loose. Quit being a little bitch about it and whatever. So I remember holding back tears, and I remember looking at the waitress, and she must have been like, I don't know, 19, 20. She was young, and she looked at me, and she looked at my little brother. My older brother, of course, was the golden child, so he wasn't having any issues whatsoever. But my little brother, he and I were really, really connected emotionally. So if I was sad, he was sad because I was sad. So he looked at me and he saw me welling up with tears. And so he was welling up with tears and holding my hand. And this waitress looked at us, looked at me in the eye, looked at my little brother in the eye, and I could tell, even at that young age, I must have been like 7 or 8. She
Mm-hmm.
knew something was going on, and she wanted to do something, but she was too young to do something, didn't know what she could do.
She didn't know what to do.
Yeah, so she just smiled at us in this like pathetic smile, and then gave me a pat on the shoulder and left. So there are a lot of people that back then.
That's heart-wrenching.
This is back in the 1900s, you know.
Wasn't that so weird?
I fucking hate it. So this is back in the 1900s. So back then, nobody knew what
It's
to
weird.
do.
I remember the 80s, and I remember thinking they were a lot better because they weren't like the 50s and 60s. I remember being in it thinking that we are so much better now.
Yeah.
Now I look back at the 80s, I'm like, dang,
Yeah.
I think we were better, but I remember being like, I just remember the 80s, and I remember thinking like, oh, we're better now.
We totally
you know,
are
like
better.
we're like, we got computers coming out, like things were just like, we were like, you know, like all the.
Well, we were waiting for the hoverboard back then.
I feel like we were like,
We were so ready for the hoverboard. So
Let me ask you, Michelle.
right. We were like, yeah, we were all future focused. Like I just felt different. Just so to hear the social issues that were still going on.
it was opulence. It was a decade of opulence back then. It was everybody.
Yeah, it was
lots of
oblivious.
money.
Now I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle, do you have any time constraints? Do you have to be done at a certain time?
I have to be. Yeah, I have a point. That's I came in. I'm actually doing a parenting assessment for DCF.
So
at
this is
10:30.
warm up.
That's why
This is warm up then.
Yeah, so warm up. Yeah, I have to set these people that have DCF involved.
Mama
in their
made me
lives,
eat
and
my
they have
mashed
to- I have to do an
potatoes. We
assessment.
gotta
See if they
warm
need
up the
parenting
throat.
classes or feedback, any recommendations. So I have that at 10:30.
Okay.
So I got about a half hour.
Okay.
A half hour. Yeah. Okay.
We won't keep you.
I just wasn't sure if how long we needed to go. Yeah.
Just so you know, program leader, if you look at that clock up in the top right corner, it's ticking off.
Okay.
A half
you
hour.
heard
I
me.
got
Or
you.
you can see it here.
We
half
got it.
hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to run over too. I feel like I ran over on you last time. So.
Yeah, no, I know. But so anyway, the whole point of this discussion is not to talk about poor me, but is to talk about
No, but it's
the
examples.
narcissistic family dynamic. And I didn't realize what it was until I was like almost 40 when you posted it. So
Really, I thought you would have known because you knew a lot about narcissism.
I
You
knew
would
about-
remind me when I was going through it that I would know
But that-
stuff, and
but
you
it was
would
that
remind me,
aspect
like,
of
you know
it
this,
that you-
Michelle.
right. I knew about narcissism because I dated narcissists, and then I
Yeah.
figured out my father was a narcissist when I was 36, but I didn't realize the dynamic and the triangulation was the part that really
Triangulation's nasty,
really
yeah.
bothered me. Is like I said, whenever my father introduced my brothers into punishing me with the punishment so that I could
Yeah.
feel hard feelings towards them and not trust them anymore, or he would pit us against each other, and so not having that relationship. And I wanted to talk about it because we're going into the Thanksgiving time, we're going to into the
Yeah.
family dinner time, and then how awkward is that,
It's stressful for a lot of people. It's very stressful. Like I hear it all the time. Like, I don't want to go see my family. I'm like, don't.
yes
It
yes
really is that simple,
Who
isn't
says
it?
you have to? That's me,
And
though. That's
that's-
how I am as a counselor. I'll be like, what script says you have to go?
Right, but that's the other thing that I want to talk
go
about
camping.
that really pisses me the fuck off is that people go, they're your family.
That's it,
You
because that's
gotta
conditioned. That's
forgive
societal.
them. That family is family. No. They're my fucking relatives. There's a difference.
They're your genetic
They're my
donors.
genetic relatives. They're not my family. You, Michelle, are my family. Family is the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that you choose to be around you, that you choose to surround you and support you. Family, I mean, in a part, they're right. Family is there to support you and build you up and make you better.
Yeah.
But it does not have fuck all to do with DNA or blood
I mean, there are
type.
some people with healthy families, and good for them. Like they can still choose their original family, but it's still a choice, right? And
It's a
that's fine.
choice. Family
There's
is a
lot of
choice.
us that don't.
Relatives are not a choice. And you do not owe, and I'm going to say this right now, and you can have your relatives listen to this.
Yep.
You do
Yeah.
not owe your relatives shit because you did not pay them to be born in that family. You didn't do anything
Yep.
to make yourself be born in that. You didn't ask to be born in that family.
Well, it's all about self-worth. If you value yourself enough,
Right.
you can back off away from that toxic family, and just cross out the word family and look at it for what it is. Toxic.
Relatives.
Well, it's just toxicity.
It's
And who needs
toxicity.
that? If you
And I
have,
think people sometimes feel afraid, though, like if we have all this society, like Christmas, like you see all the commercials and all the stuff, it's like, oh, you should be like happy Thanksgiving dinner or happy Christmas dinner and everyone's together, or all the Christmas movies where people are going home in this warm suburban middle class homes and like
Yeah.
everybody's like
Go fuck yourself.
That's not reality.
Go fuck yourself.
How's that for a Christmas slogan?
Yeah, go fuck yourself. Because you know what? The best Thanksgiving I've ever... You know Chumley. Our friend Chumley, he's a mate of ours that owns a pub. He owns a pub in our hometown. His name is Chumley. Well, his real name is Michael.
And he's also from New England, like I am. He's from Newburyport, so I like we kind of have some other connections.
Yeah, he's from Massachusetts or whatever. But he bought a pub like it's been like 20 years or whatever. But he would buy a pub, and anybody. It's in a college town, in FIT town, Florida Institute of Technology, and so there are a lot of students there that cannot be around their relatives during that time. Right. And so whenever...
friend Thanksgiving,
Right. You remember Chumley's Thanksgiving? I used to go there even though I had my relatives in town.
You would go there.
I would go to his house for Thanksgiving because we had like skinny dipping in his pool.
In Florida and in St. Thomas, I did a lot of Friendsgiving. And I loved it because it was like, we'd have like, I've had, Thanksgiving on a tropical beach or at the beach or just, deep frying a turkey out there, like whatever. And the pressure was so gone. There was none of that family stress or pressure.
Right. And I have to listen to gossip about your Aunt Jennifer. Right.
It felt more authentic than, like this whole, I don't know, Martha Stewart thing.
I get it, right? Right. And there was we had fucking paper plates, you know what I mean? We didn't have all the fine china out. It was paper plates, and we had a keg out, and we were out in the backyard, and we were skinny dipping in his pool.
I wasn't doing that, but all right.
Oh, I did. Oh Lord, I did. But it was a good time, and it was non-toxic. Besides the food. I mean, the food was like so.
And the thing is that you had the wherewithal, you had the presence of mind to choose that over a toxic family situation.
Right. Oh yeah.
So again, those people who say, but it's family, and the response can be
No,
it's family.
But my response is no.
That's what I say. So
it's not family.
Think about why they're programmed to think that. Like, let's talk about that.
It might be a religious thing. I don't know what it is, but they're like, oh, you got to forgive family. You got to be with. No.
It can be very ingrained. Like they can be taught that you don't walk away from family. Family's there for you. There's a whole bunch of subconscious.
And why is that?
I think sometimes people have
programming. We're like little programmers. Like we've been programmed, but once you realize you're able to program yourself.
Yeah.
you can change that.
So, but what I decided is that family is what you choose. You can choose your own family. Like I say, Michelle, you're like a sister to me, and therefore you are a sister to me, and you come and visit me. Right. You visited me here in Norway more than anybody in my relative group has ever visited me. Yes.
Is it a financial thing for them? Or?
No, it's just because. Okay. It's
called giving a shit.
I don't know.
Michelle's been over here to visit me. I've had other people.
We have Liam there too. That's kind of odd.
Right, their own grandkid. They don't come in and visit. So that's what I'm saying. Is a difference between.
I want to go back more if they would do that. They would let me come in with my CDC vaccine.
We'll talk about that, dude. The CDC. Your CDC vaccinations are not welcome here at this point in time, but we'll sort that out. Yeah. So I mean, so there is a difference, and I want people to know. Going into the Thanksgiving season and going into the Christmas season, when you have to go see your relatives, remember that they're your relatives. And if you have that racist uncle that says all that horrible shit, or you have that auntie that starts talking about conspiracy theories, or you have that father that tells you that you're never good enough or whatever, you can opt out of that. It's okay.
Yes.
It's okay to opt out of that and go with your real family.
You'll probably feel better.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Even just sitting home, and I'll get my own food, and I'll watch movies, and I'm like, this is so much more peaceful.
Yeah, I was going to say, not only is it okay, sometimes it's essential. If you want to live, if you want to be happy, you have to do that.
Yeah.
It's not just okay. Sometimes you just need to do that to give yourself a life.
It's good for you. I mean, and growing up or now knowing what the narcissistic family dynamic is and what I grew up with and all this stuff. The more I realize that, I don't want to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it. The more I understand women who grew up with cats and they just have cats. You know what I'm saying?
That's the name of this
every
episode.
day I'm like, I'm becoming the cat lady, man.
We're going to call this episode Cat Lady Explained.
Like,
Cat
I'm
Lady
embracing
Explained.
it. No, I know. I'm aware.
You know,
I am rebranding it. I am rebranding the cat lady. Okay?
Yeah, there's got to be another name of it. I want to say.
I just got to start dating.
I want to say it's the aware woman, you know, and not a werewolf, but the aware woman that she understands that people are can be cunts, absolute cunts. Cats are cunt-ish in a way, you know, in the way that they wake you up with their asshole in your face or whatever. But there's been worse things, you know.
But let me ask you this, Tiffany: are you the kind of person?
There's been worse things than an ass.
because you had it rough, right?
I did.
And the people that should have been closest to you are the ones that let you down the most. Your family. Are you the kind of person now who, because of that, you meet people with skepticism, or are you the type who feels that everybody is good until they give you a reason to not think? In other words, are you skeptical of humanity? Are you?
I'm going to say neither.
Really?
Neither. I don't go up and trust people with open arms right away, but I do have a great nose.
You did. You trusted me with open arms,
right? Because I have a great nose.
Yes, you are. You are. Yeah. She does.
Yes.
That's one thing I noticed about you, Tiff. That you actually are very, very, and I appreciate. I think I have gotten to that point too, but I think you are really good at it, and I appreciate that. I'll actually bounce things off of her if my emotions are too.
So
she's the psychologist, and she'll even come to me and go,
what does it smell like? I can do it in my work setting easy because I'm not emotionally attached to it. But when it affects me emotionally, I need to like bounce it off as well.
So you've seen enough to where you have. Yeah. I got your radar.
I can see the red flags right away.
I think she's always had a good radar, but it's clearer with experience.
It's clearer with experience. Sure. It's clear when you have a like I said, when you can name the monster, when you can put a word to what it is that's fucked up. Because when I was growing up as a child, I knew something was fucked up. This is not right.
No, you can't put a word to it.
I couldn't put a word to it. I would go to my friend's house and see their relationships and stuff.
Right? Their families totally are different. Right?
and I brought up my boyfriend Andrew earlier, right? And he brings his mom and dad. His mom and dad come and visit him here in Norway once a year, and I actually get exhausted by them because they are so healthy. They are like mom and dad joke with each other and joke with their son and giggle and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like they have that Donna Reed kind of. And I'm like, this is not normal. And so it freaks me out a little bit. So I can.
You have to try to act within that. You have to try to be different. So it's exhausting.
Well, in my head, it doesn't seem realistic. I'm like, this is not how families react. This is fucking weird. They're putting on a show for me.
You're looking for the underlying motive.
Right. So really I am, but then I come to find out they actually are that nice and they actually are that loving and they actually really do enjoy each other's company. And I'm like, how does that happen in a family? That's not a thing. So I can take
my impression of John's family right now. My impression of yours is that you're the same way. You and Snoopy and the kids. I just have this. You guys seem very healthy.
Yeah.
Massively healthy. Am I right on that? That's my instinct.
I think we are.
Just seems so healthy. You guys,
I think we've done. I think we're doing things right for us.
Intentional. You have intentional.
But the sad thing is, it's because neither Snoopy nor I had the optimal childhood.
No,
so
but I feel like you're intentionally trying to create that. Like you're awake.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Which is good because not everybody walks out awake. Not everybody walks out of that shit awake. Yeah. You know what I mean? Some people just walk out of it blindly and they're like, okay, well, this is how life is.
Right. Once you go through that period, then you kind of go through enough pain and you wake up.
Right.
Well, I think it's one thing to be damaged and just stay damaged. It's something else if you've been damaged, but you're working on repairing yourself and trying to turn it into something that can benefit you and others.
I think I'll always be damaged, but I'm aware of my damages.
And you're working, and you work on it.
I work on it.
Yeah, and you don't take it out on someone else.
No, well
okay. Well, so we're human, and we all have moments. We all have moments. You know, we get frustrated, angry, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But you're a good person, and you're damaged, but it doesn't dictate your path through life.
It doesn't dictate my path. Well, yeah, it does in a way that I will refuse to allow my child to be.
But that's a positive influence.
Yes,
that's positive.
You're intentional. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm also fierce about it. I'm like, I remember taking my son to visit his grandparents, and then my dad used to do this thing where he was. and it's not no sexual relationship, but he was tickling us, but it was hard tickling in the ribs where it hurt when I was a kid.
Yeah.
He would tickle us and then he would dig in the ribs and so we would scream and go, ow, ow, ow. And he'd be giggling. And then I took my son there when my son was like 5, and my dad started tickling him that way, and I had a reaction. I'm like, "You do not touch my son like that!" And I flipped out. I just like lost my shit. My dad's like, "I'm just tickling him," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "He's just tickling him," and I'm like, "The fuck he is." I remember how that is. So it's not always a positive reaction.
It's painful. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. I'm not laughing here.
I'm not fucking laughing, man. It's not funny. So it's so not every reaction I get from my learning experiences have been positive. I do have knee-jerk reactions. I do like
I get
snap.
that's emotionally reactive is common with with scapegoated child, especially. To be emotionally reactive, to just react quick.
How common are these kind of households? Do either of you have any numbers?
I'm actually going to have to look that back up for you, and I'll let you know, because I'm not sure right this second. But I know it's increasing, and it's actually more common. I don't know if it's increasing or people's awareness of it is increasing.
I think people's awareness of it is increasing, because I remember when I looked it up, they said, okay, here's the thing. They said that
Did you look it up? Because I got to look up the statistics. I'll share them with you though. After.
Yeah, find it. But the statistics that I found like 5 years ago, and then it's going to change a lot in 5 years, is that they said that 1% of the population is narcissistic.
That's what I thought it was, but I don't agree with that anymore.
No, the reason why I don't agree with that, because in order to be diagnosed as narcissistic, you have to admit that there's something wrong with you. And narcissists
won't seek. They're like the hardest to get treatment for. One, because it's a personality disorder and they're pretty much untreatable. But even then, even if they have traits, even if they're not full blown and there's some hope there, they don't think anything's wrong with them.
No.
But you say it's untreatable.
Why go to therapy? I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. It's you people.
Yeah.
But I'm fine.
But you say it's untreatable. So
then they can make you react, and then they make you react, and then they say, see, look at you acting all crazy. I'm fine. Look at her jumping around. Yeah.
So when you say it's untreatable, what do we do then with a narcissist?
So it's kind of like any personality disorder is untreatable. It's like antisocials, a sociopath. That's the easiest one to think that it can make people realize. Like serial killers, that's antisocial personality disorder.
You can't treat them.
They're not. They're not treatable. Narcissism is also a personality disorder, and it's a lack of
empathy.
It's a lack of empathy. Yeah, and it's like they can't. It's like to treat. You can't.
So are they just lost? There's nothing that can be done.
I mean, you can. I mean, they don't want the help. A true narcissist is not going to want that. Now, if they do go, there's usually an ulterior manipulative motive behind it. Yeah. There's another motive. They're not really there. Like I've had them in counseling, like I said, like for court ordered things, and they can be all charming, but I'm like, you're not here because you want to work on yourself. You're here because you want to work on me. Yeah. To manipulate me. Right. To be on your side. But
here's a person that I found fascinating is I want to say his last name correctly. He's an Israeli. His name is Sam Vitkin. I'll have to write that down. He is absolutely diagnosed. He's one of the rare ones that are absolutely diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. He also has a doctorate in psychology or whatever, and then he goes and does these TED Talks or whatever, he does these classes in college and talks about narcissistic personality disorder. I've checked him out on YouTube, and he absolutely is a narcissist. He's an absolute cunt, I mean, but he is honest about.
Say his name again.
He's aware of it, and he actually wants.
He's aware of it. He's diagnosed with it.
That's very rare. That'd be like picture Trump trying to get counseling to be a better human.
Here on the other side is also
that's an example that I get you to.
He's also written books and made money from it. So it's always something grinding for it.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I'm not sure how much I trust it.
But at the same time, what he talks about how he feels in the moment. I remember watching this one YouTube video with him, and he was standing in front of a college class or whatever, and talking a psychology class, and a woman raised her hand, and you could tell that she had been abused by narcissism or whatever. And I can't remember the question she asked, but it had something to do with the empathy. Like, don't you ever feel bad for what you do? And what he said to her, and it was like almost robotic. It was like just kind of cold. And he goes, no, because you're just a thing to help me get to what I want. And the way he said
you're a tool.
You're a tool. That's what he said. You're a tool to get me what I want. So no, I don't care if you cry. You can cry right now. Go ahead and cry. And she did start crying. And he had no emotion on his face. Wow. So he was really fascinating to watch because he is aware of his personality disorder, but he's not trying to change it because he's got that personality disorder.
I have an ex that is, he's a narcissist, but he's like he doesn't really try to harm anybody. He's just really arrogant. Like he's kind of interesting. He doesn't like overtly harm anybody. He just wants everyone to tell him he's great all the time.
Right. Like, but is that narcissism?
He will exploit a little bit for his own, like to get a girl naked or something. But we're not talking like, you know what I mean?
He's a college guy.
Kind of. But he's the material. I mean, but it's like at a heightened level. Like he actually contacted me again and wanted me to like have a threesome with his wife. Not much. And he kept, the more I talked to him, he kept like trying to get me to say how great he was. Aren't I great? Aren't I this? And I'm like, dude, like this is so, I go, you know what's hot and sexy? Humility. Being humble. Like that is hot. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I can't. But he actually admits it. He's like, yeah, you know me. I'm arrogant. I can't do that. I'm a narcissist. And he comes out. He's like, I'm a narcissist. Like he owns it. And I'm like, you freaking admit it. He's like, yeah, but I'm not going to change it. Like, why would I? Wow. I'm great. And he says like his wife is like much younger, you know, and she's all like, and he's like, she's a pro hoe. And I'm like, what's a pro hoe, dude? Like, I didn't even know. Like, he hasn't I haven't talked to him in like 15 years. And I'm like, you have not matured since like 21. Like, it's so weird. And so he's like, he's talking about like, well, she thinks she's only dates like guys that are like pros. I'm like, you're not a pro. You live on an island because he's into windsurfing and kiteboarding, and he went to the Olympics for windsurfing, but he really didn't. When you're a U.S. citizen, if you live on the Virgin Islands, you can represent the Virgin Islands or you can represent the U.S.
Right.
Nobody was competing. He made the team because he represented the U.S. Virgin Islands, and there was no one else.
It's like the.
You're the only one trying out. You got to make the team, dude.
It's like the Nigerian. It's like the Nigerian downhill skiing team. Somebody's going to get on that team. You know,
I've seen Cool Runnings. I know how that works.
Like, I'm an Olympic athlete. That's his narcissism. I'm an Olympic athlete. If he hears this, he's going to be so pissed if he hears this podcast, but I don't care. I'm an Olympic athlete, and I'm like this, and I'm like, dude. So he's like, yeah, she wanted to date a pro. I'm like, you know why she married you? Because she's young, and she didn't know any better to realize that you were not that great. And he also lost everything he owned because his partner sued him for fraud. Oh, wow. So there's a manipulation there. Yeah. He lost all the boats. Like, I don't know. He just lost everything, but he's still now he's looking for even more validation. And then what if I can get Michelle, who can call me? I call him out and everything. Right. To get Michelle to come in and get naked with me and my wife, that would be the ultimate ego boost, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Maybe I should call that guy. Maybe I should call that guy that said you're hot. Maybe that's another.
Which one? Because they're probably plenty.
There's a few of them. But what? Let me ask you a question. Here's a question I want to ask before we wind everything up. What makes a person a narcissist? How do you become that?
Very, very low sense of self-worth, and usually hypercritical parents. Usually, if their own parents were like, "You're not worthy," you're not, like very like they could never do enough. They could never do anything right. Trying to eternally seek the parents' approval.
But I also heard that there's also a specific.
There's like no sense of self-worth there.
I also heard that, or read that there was also a specific chemical in your brain. So it's not just nature, or not just nurture, but it's also a little bit of nature. And that if you harbor this, either you're missing this chemical, or you have too much of this chemical in your brain, and then you also have these parents that kind of dismiss you quite a bit, and you're constantly seeking their praise. It's like the perfect storm, and that's what creates
But see, then I would think, and I'm far from an expert, but I'm just extrapolating a little bit in my thought process here. I would think then that a narcissist could be fixed, or at least treated.
No.
If it's a chemical thing, isn't there medicine?
No.
If it's a socio thing, isn't it something that can be?
That's just research. They're just researching it now. They don't have it all.
They don't have it all, because it truly is. It's a phenomenon that is now becoming more and more in light.
There's also a part of the brain there's also a part of the brain that really helps with empathy, and they've been showing with narcissists and sociopaths too that they don't have that part of the brain working.
Right. Is that the hippocampus or what is that?
It's all research, is they're learning more about the brain.
Yeah. I think it's like the hippocampus is a little bit damaged
It's a
whenever
little
you're
area,
born.
yeah.
And then if you also have, you ever seen that movie, The Perfect Storm?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
actually.
okay.
I haven't seen that.
It's like basic. Fuck me, it's been so long. I just remember that it's like winds from the east and winds from the west created this
Everything
holy.
kind of composites
Everything
together.
kind of. Yeah, and so you had a hurricane here.
Anything that can go wrong is going to go wrong. Right?
Yeah, it's basically
Okay.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
So if you're either missing that chemical or that chemical's over triggered in your brain from
Then
birth,
it's gonna,
and then you also, in addition, have parents that are kind of aloof, who you can never please. Who, no matter, you're like, look at me, mommy. Look, I got an A. Look at me,
Yeah.
mommy. And then
Yeah.
everybody's like, they're like, yeah. And so you're
more
constantly looking for
predisposed to go down there. Yeah.
right. So when you
Okay.
have
It's
both
a
of those things,
predisposition. You might have it in your brain, like you might have a certain trait that you wouldn't have, like a personality trait.
right.
But whether or not it gets activated or not depends on the circumstances that happen to you.
Because you also have to remember that narcissism, everybody's got a little bit. Everybody,
We have
it's a
egos.
trait.
We have egos.
Everybody's got an ego, right? Everybody's
I
got.
think that
But a lot of people
survival-
have empathy too.
Yeah.
Though. It's whether you have empathy or not to counteract it.
Yeah.
You can feel for something else. You can feel how your actions affect somebody else.
Right. Because
It's more than arrogance. It's just
you can't
caring
tell me
how
that
to
you don't
affect others.
feel good when people like your podcast. Or
Yeah, you
whatever.
know, so
Yeah.
and so I was thinking that it would be almost like a survival instinct type of thing. You know, if you feel
Yeah.
good about yourself doing this, that, or the other, or you feel like you're good at something, you're going to do more of that, and
Right.
you're going to
Yeah.
appreciate it, and you're going to try and reinforce that good feeling in certain ways.
Pretty much,
which
but-
could be narcissism light. Maybe.
Right. Narcissism light, but then whenever you have zero empathy,
Well, there's people that just are arrogant. You can be arrogant and
Yeah.
not narcissistic.
yeah. Yeah.
You're so
There are such people as dicks. You know, there are people that are just dicks. You know, they're like
And not everything has to be diagnosed. I mean, unless you want to diagnose, like you have dick disorder.
Yeah.
Actually, there could be.
dickety disease.
Should I get checked? Okay, I'm 52 years old. Should I get checked for dick disorder?
Only if you bend over and cough.
I'm understanding myself right now.
John's got to bend over and cough. We're good. Turn your head.
I want to.
Dick disorder.
Let's take these last 2 or 3 minutes and Tiffy, sum up the thought or the feeling or the message that you want people to gather from this episode.
What I basically, the whole point of this episode is that I want people, especially going into these soon to be family dinner dynamics where you feel obligated to go to dinner with your family, and maybe you don't have a word for it. Maybe you felt the way I did when I was a kid, like something's fucked up here. You know, I know that there's no equality here. I know that there is preferential treatment, or I know that every time I walk in here and hang out with these people, I feel worse when I leave. You know what I mean? Like if you feel worse when you leave, don't feel like you have to be there because they're family. Family is a different thing. Relatives, they're your relatives. They're your DNA people and all that stuff, but it does not mean that they're your family. You can create your own family. I moved 4,500 miles away from my relatives and have created my own family here.
That is so beautifully said, and I think that
I love that. Yeah.
I almost want to put that on repeat for some of the expats who might be listening to that, because that can comfort a lot of people, hearing what you said and kind of opening that option to people who feel like they're kind of stuck and forced
and I
into
don't have
certain
any family here.
situations.
Bullshit.
Let's create a family.
I think you have family. You have family. You don't have relatives.
I call
You
her
don't have
sister.
family.
That's my sister.
That's
right
my
there.
brother right here, right?
I know. I actually love your little expat family. I'm like, I want to go there and just be part of it, man.
Right. So just because don't
You guys
feel
all want to come home.
so my whole point is that just because society says that, oh, well, they're your family, you got to forgive and forget. No, sometimes you have to put that toxic person, you have to go what's called gray rock. Gray Rock is,
Gray Rock.
yeah, you know Gray Rock because, do you know what Gray Rock is?
I've heard it, but
Gray Rock, for the listeners that haven't heard of it, Gray Rock is, well, quite frankly, there's nothing more boring than a gray rock, right? So if you have, nothing more blasé. If you have somebody in your relative circle or even in your family circle, your friend circle, who do shit just to get a rise out of you, who do things like do the golden child and the triangulation and all that stuff, they do it because their narcissistic supply is getting the rise out of you to feel like they got a control of your emotions, to feel like they can be the puppet master in this whole situation. But if you are a boring gray rock when they do that, and my favorite phrase is like, especially when they get like really hissy and they get pissed off about me, Tiffany, why didn't you come to dinner? You disappointed the whole family and you didn't come over here. And then my favorite phrase is, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah.
Because that's not saying I'm sorry, that I did that thing.
It's a great response.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
It's a great response.
Right?
Hopefully it'll prompt them to think a little bit about what they just said.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, or they realize that I'm not actually apologizing. That's the most non-apologetic answer that you can ever give somebody.
Gray rock, though, is just to not react at all.
It's
to
not react at all.
Non-reactive, non-responsive, like a rock. A rock doesn't move. You can kick it, you can hit it, you can yell at it. It just sits there. It doesn't react.
And if it's a gray rock, it doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shimmer.
It doesn't give them any kind of reaction to feed off of, like a vampire. Because they're like vampires. They need that energy. And if you're not giving them, they'll move on.
In my head, I'm like, they're like toddlers, mama, 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 and then if you don't give them any fucking attention, then eventually they go off and like they tear up some flower in your bathroom.
Yeah, they want their attention. They'll get it someplace else. Yeah.
So people need to come out of this episode knowing that they have an option. They're not locked into their family.
They're not locked
into the term family.
They're not locked into something. They're
totally.
Not locked into going to Thanksgiving dinner. They're not locked into going to Christmas dinner. If you have that relative that makes you feel like shit after you leave, that makes you feel less than, that makes you feel just unhappy when you leave, you are not locked into having to have any relationship with them. They make dinner. If you're in the States, you can go to Denny's and get a fucking turkey dinner if that's what you're waiting on.
Boston Market here. You know what? They make it all up for you. You just got to go pick it up. They make it every side, cornbread, candy stuff, potatoes, the marshmallows. They got it all. But that's that option if you don't feel like cooking. But you can cook for yourself too. Then you have leftovers for a week.
But my point is find your family. Don't find your relatives. Find your family. Like I said, I moved 4,500 miles away. I've been over here. I got family. I got John, and then I even got you. We're not related.
I know. I'm like hanging on. I'm like, you're not going anywhere. I'm still here.
So people don't have to be locked into that traditional thing at all.
DNA means nothing.
I never liked the traditional thing. I always liked alternative things anyway. Like this is just It's just
Michelle,
what society says we should have. Just for me, it doesn't equal very loving. Anyway, I do have only a little bit of time left.
Closing thoughts, Michelle. Anything you want to say?
Closing thoughts. I think we should do a follow-up one on family with the holidays coming up. I think we should do more of these. Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there's more to say, and I'm a little time crunched. But I think just with going off what Tiffany said, you can make your own family. You can do your own things, and you don't have to suffer. And I also think if we're not feeding into, if everyone thinks that you have to be there for Thanksgiving and those holidays, then they're going to get more power because they're kind of forcing you to be there and then manipulating. But if everyone starts saying, you know what, I don't have to be there, they can't. They're going to lose that pull, that hold.
Well, and I want to cut off those who are going to say that this is a negative or a divisive message. Quite the opposite. I think it's empowering because I think a lot of people are hampered. A lot of people are tied down because of this traditional idea.
Your freedom. It's showing people there's a freedom.
Exactly. Yeah. Amen. Listen, ladies, as usual, Tiffy, as usual, it was just fun. It was great. We're going to go in there and see if Snoopy's awake. If she's not, maybe we should wake her up.
I'll jump on her bed.
And Michelle, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I want to do it again.
Who knows? We're going to meet one day, maybe. Maybe one day.
I might not ever be allowed to come into Norway, but at least a country around.
If the CDC allows vaccinations over here, then she'll come. Yeah.
All right.
Michelle,
Anyway, I miss you.
Michelle, again, thank you so much for your time. Tiffy, thank you so much for the good content and for your loving presence. I just love you to death. She's the best voice in Norway.
I know, you both do.
Whether it's sick or healthy, she's got the voice. No, not me, it's her. Sick or healthy, she's got the voice. I want to thank everybody for coming and listening to this episode, whether you're listening to me on the radio. I should have an echo effect. Or whether you're listening to me on my podcast, thank you so much for being here. This is all about love. This is about empowerment. This is about motivation and inspiration. Thank you all so much. This has been Coming Home with John Allen. Bye now.
Love you, Michelle.